What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking through my watch list ahead of Game Week 21. So not all the matches are yet finished for Game Week 20, but as they're going to be covering over a couple of days, I thought I'd get the ball rolling on Game Week 21 stuff. We are still hoping to get some double Game Week fixtures that could go into Game Week 22 and some could go into Game Week 21 as well. We still don't have them yet. As soon as we do, I will do a video on that, but I've made this watch list video as players that you could target either way that aren't in my team that I'm looking at as well. So if you do enjoy it, please do give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Alright, so first up is Harry Kane, and it's fair to say he probably hasn't had the best of seasons so far. Some of us have already been burnt a little bit by him. We bought him a few weeks ago instead of going for Son. Obviously, some people went for both, but for a lot of us, it was one or the other. I went for Kane instead of Son. Son got 3 returns in 3. Kane got 0 in that time. It was actually this period here where they played Norwich, Brentford and Leeds. He played every single game for 90 minutes and didn't get any goals. Now, he has scored 3 in the last 3 against Liverpool, Palace, Southampton. I don't think, apart from... Obviously, Spurs have now had a little bit longer under Conte, right? The more games they play, the more they know how he wants them to play, the more that he can drill that into them during training sessions and stuff like that. But I don't think anything miraculous has happened. I think this just happens in football, right? Sometimes you go for a period of scoring hardly any goals, and then sometimes you go through periods of scoring goal after goal after goal. Similar happened with Saka, right? I had Saka for a while, did nothing. All of a sudden, he's got like 6 returns in 6. So I think that's what's happening with Harry Kane. His numbers are still looking pretty good. They're not quite as high as last year, but 0.44 expected goals per 90. And that doesn't even include penalties, which we know he has in his locker. And 0.1 expected assists. So it's pretty decent. For me, I already own Son. Now, this is... For most people, if you've held on to Salah, you can probably only get one of them for this week. I've already got Son and Ronaldo, so I could actually do Ronaldo to Harry Kane, which is pretty tempting for Watford away. I don't think that's a move that I have to make, and you could say it's probably a little bit forced. But Ronaldo has Wolves at home, Villa away, West Ham at home. So, like, Ronaldo's fixture on here is pretty good. And until Salah's back, maybe there's no need to really force him out in a transfer. But I just haven't been impressed with Man United at all under Rangnick so far. The Newcastle performance was really bad. Let's see what happens against Burnley, right? I don't have to make the decision right now. I would say that I don't know if Spurs have been that much better against sides that aren't willing to kind of attack. We saw how good they were against Liverpool, but Liverpool threw men at the pitch all the time, right? Trent and Robertson, it didn't matter how much the kind of wide players for Spurs got forward. Robertson and Trent stayed forward all the time, and that allowed Son and Kane to get in behind, because that's just the type of football that Liverpool play. They're willing to take a few risks because it usually means more goals, right, the other end. Whereas then they played Southampton. Southampton had 10 men for a long time, and Spurs couldn't really capitalise on that. So I would be a little bit worried. And I wouldn't say that Kane is a kind of a long-term buy. I think Watford away is really good. I'd probably still captain him over Son most weeks. Like, there were some people in the stream that had both for Southampton. I did say I'd probably go for Kane, even though it ended up quite close. Arsenal at home's not too bad. Chelsea away is tough, and then they got to play Southampton again. So I think if I go for Kane, the only real reason is I think you keep him for a 4-game week block and then maybe look to get rid of him again. And obviously they do have a lot of fixtures to rearrange. So if there are double game weeks in 21 or 22, you'd imagine that Harry Kane or Spurs will definitely have at least one fixture put in there. So they've got Brentford away and Brighton at home. Sorry, you can't see it on the screen, but that's who they've still got to play. So I think Spurs looking pretty good. There's a big, obviously, pull for that Watford game. Whether or not Ronaldo to Kane is a move that I can do, bearing in mind he's got Arsenal at home and Chelsea away straight after, I'm not sure. But I'm keeping my options open because most people are either going to have no Spurs attackers because they don't want to sell Salah before Chelsea, or they're just going to have one. So having 2 could be a little bit of a differential. And I don't think selling Ronaldo right now is that bad of an option. But let's see how Man United do against Burnley. All right, I would say that James Madison is probably in lots of people's transfer plans for this week to possibly bring in. Norwich home, Burnley away is pretty good. They do, again, like most teams. I think it's only Man City that don't currently have fixtures to rearrange, and that will happen at some point, I'm sure. They've got Spurs at home and Everton away. So they're not necessarily the greatest fixtures, but obviously they do pair pretty well with Norwich and with Burnley, right? So double game weeks hopefully to come, maybe in 21, possibly in 22 as well. We need to obviously keep an eye on that. And he's a pretty good price at 6.9 million. He's playing a lot at the moment. Now, part of the fact that he's playing a lot is good, right? That's what we want from FPL players, or players for our FPL teams. But one of the issues is, I think Brendan Rodgers would have rested him if he'd been able to. So he played him against Man City and then played him again against Liverpool. And he did pick up a knock. And other players got a rest, right? So they didn't play in both games. Tielemans, for example, came off the bench against Liverpool, didn't basically play from the start. So Madison is looking pretty good. He did come off with a knock. From what I've seen, Rodgers said he had a knock, and then he said that James is fine, but then said that both he and Vardy would have to be kind of assessed over the next 2 days. So hopefully we'll have another press conference and he'll get pushed on it and asked what the deal is. And if he says he's okay, then hopefully he'll play again. Obviously, depending on when fixtures get rearranged, there is a little bit of a break after this from game week 21 till 22. There is a 2-week gap, but if we get double game weeks, there could be even more games at the start of January, so we just don't know yet. But I think overall I've been fairly impressed the last few games with how Madison has been played. I think in some ways, it's not just the fact that they've got a lot of injuries, which is why he's not been able to rest him, but also he's just been playing really well. His link up from kind of the more defensively minded midfielders all the way up to like whoever's playing up front, Iheanacho, Vardy, etc., has just been pretty damn good. So I've been impressed. His numbers are looking pretty positive as well. 0.32 expected goals per 90, 0.19 expected assists. That's pretty good. That is up on last year. Again, whether or not he can keep that up, we'll have to see. But for 6.9 million for a player that's playing most games at the moment with pretty good fixtures and double game weeks to come, I'm liking the look of it. I do think he's a fairly short-term move. Like if you look at the rest of the fixtures from game week 24 onwards, Liverpool, West Ham, Wolves, they're not necessarily that great. But at that point, once the kind of potential, I have to keep saying potential until it's definitely confirmed, double game weeks are done, then we might be moving back to say Man City midfielders or something like that, whoever's got the best fixtures at the time. So short-term moves aren't always bad. I mean, I would never do it usually for 1 game week, but for 3 where you hopefully get some doubles as well, for a player that's playing well, good numbers, 6.9 million, I'm liking the look of Madison and he could come in this week. So I feel like I've talked about Watkins quite a lot recently. Obviously, the week that I bought Pookie, even though it was never a Pookie versus Watkins thing, obviously Watkins went and got a 12-pointer, I think it was, and then I was almost going to bring him in, then the game got called off, and the next game was Chelsea, and then the game against Leeds got called off as well. So he hasn't really been an option. We haven't been talking about him too much, and I'm sure quite a few people have actually sold him. But he's about to come into a period now where I think he's pretty nailed, right? I think between him and Ings, I don't see too many games where Ings plays and Watkins doesn't at all. I think it'll either be Watkins through the middle or Watkins off the left when Ings plays. I think either way, Watkins is a 90-minute man most game weeks, right? He's just got the energy, he can press, which is what Gerrard wants. He's just an all-round good forward. So I think minutes-wise, he's decent. We don't really know how he's going to work off the left too much. I think when they played Norwich and Ings came on, Watkins did move to the left and he came central quite often, but we don't want to make too much judgment off just a few games. So it might be that he does drift just too wide at times, doesn't have enough shots, etc. But only time is going to tell. The good thing is he's got the fixtures. And right now, I've talked about Harry Kane for a very small period of time. James Madison might come in for a few game weeks. With Watkins, if you were to bring him in now, and obviously this all depends on postponements and stuff like that, right? I get that. But from like game week 21 to 26, he's just got good fixtures. And even after that, it's Brighton away and then Southampton at home. So you could keep him for a little period of time. And if he gets double game week soon, the 2 fixtures they have to rearrange Aston Villa are Burnley at home and Leeds away. So the fixtures are pretty good. So if he gets a double game week in 21-22, then not only have you got a forward that's probably going to play both games, probably getting close to 90 minutes in both of them, pretty good numbers as well. Like his expected goals and his expected assists are similar to last year. They're not quite at the same level, but they're only just behind. With good double game week fixtures and then good fixtures afterwards, he's quite a solid all-round player for 7.8 million. Now, for my team again, I'm in that kind of position where I don't really have a move set in stone this week. I've got Ronaldo, and if Man United have double game weeks and stuff soon, then fair enough, I'd probably want to keep him. But I'm also kind of aware that I don't think the structure is necessarily that good with him in the team. I might go for Harry Kane for a few weeks, but even then I would probably look to downgrade to a different forward. Now, A player that's not on this watch list that could be is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Everton, once again, have got another fixture now to rearrange because the game versus Newcastle has been called off. They've got a really good fixture run, some nice fixtures to be rearranged as well. But the thing with Calvert-Lewin is he's only played 3 games all season. I need to see something from him first. I just don't know how fit he's going to be when he first comes back. Like how long is it going to take to get up to full match fitness? So I am looking forward around the £8 million mark to possibly come into my team to allow that money to be spent elsewhere. I don't actually know exactly where I'd spend it in midfield yet because players like Son, Bowen, Jota I've already owned. So there's maybe not a huge amount of other options, but at some point I might need another one. So Calvert-Lewin is definitely on the list, but I think Watkins, with the fixtures they've got, full fitness, played all season, he's definitely one I'm looking at bringing in. Finally, because it hasn't happened quite so far, even though I've spoken about him quite a lot. So I will need a defender either this week or next week to come in because my Chelsea players, Alonso and Reece James, have obviously got some pretty difficult fixtures coming up now. I'm still of the opinion that you don't need to... Well, I think some people will see them in their team, and obviously they got Liverpool, then they got Man City, right? That is not easy. Both of those games are difficult. In both games, they could concede. But I don't think we need to necessarily rush out to sell them because their defence are also pretty good, right? A lot depends on Kovacic, Kante, etc. But it's a pretty good team overall, Chelsea, so I wouldn't necessarily rush to get rid of them, but at some point I'm going to have to replace them. And I think Sergio Reguilon is definitely someone I'm looking at. Now, he did come off at half-time against Southampton with a 0-pointer, which is obviously very frustrating for owners. I did say a lot on the deadline stream. One of the reasons I went for David De Gea over Lloris, well, for me it was because I didn't have enough money for Lloris, but for other people... it's because I'd rather have De Gea and Reguilon than Lloris and like Dallo or Lloris and Maguire or something like that. So I don't think we should worry too much about that 45 minutes. I think he is ahead of Sessegnon in the pecking order, and they don't really have too many other players that can play left wing back. Although Doherty was the one that came on, right, who's usually a right wing back. So I don't see that being like a full-time solution for Conte. So I think he'll be fine. I think it was just one of those games where he was on a yellow card and Conte was just worried that he was going to get the second one. He played 90 minutes the game before that against Crystal Palace, and obviously that was off the back of an injury. So I think he's looking pretty good. His attacking numbers are pretty decent as well. 0.09 expected goals per 90, 0.22 expected assists as well. So it's not like Trent Alexander-Arnold levels or anything like that, but it's still pretty good for 5.3 million. And although I think Spurs, under Conte, and maybe a bit like Man United, they are struggling a little bit against teams which are not willing to come out and attack and let them counter and stuff like that. I think defensively they have looked more and more solid. I know they conceded to Southampton. Obviously they conceded twice to Liverpool, but I mean, who doesn't concede to Liverpool, right? Before that, they had only 1 goal conceded against Leeds. Clean sheet against Everton. I think that was the first game under Conte. Clean sheet against Brentford. Clean sheet against Norwich. So they are doing pretty well against these weaker teams. So Watford could be good, although King and Dennis, I'm sure, will give them something to think about. And then, you know, even like Arsenal, possibly Southampton and Wolves, these are all games that look good for a clean sheet, and we know that Reguilon's attacking as well. So I still think, as long as he's nailed, which I think he is, that between him and Emerson Royale, he is still the better option, although he is a bit more expensive now. And if I'm downgrading a Chelsea player, unless I really need the cash, I probably wouldn't go down to Dyer or Davies, just because I think Reguilon will basically be worth the price because of the attacking returns kind of over, you know, like a 4 to 5 game week span. I wouldn't be getting Reguilon in if I wanted to sell him straight away. So he's on the watch list. Genuinely, I could go for any of the players on this watch list next week or in game week 21. If we do get fixtures and there's some like crazy double game weeks that I've not even thought about, the free hit might even come out and some of these players might be included on that. So game week 21 and 22 are going to be a little bit weird if we don't get the fixtures soon, because we're going to have to try and plan for it without them. But yeah, I think Reguilon looks good. I think out of all the defenders right now I could target, it's probably between him and Diaz for the more expensive ones. I've already got Trent. I don't really want to add another Liverpool defender. I've already got Cancelo, and the Chelsea boys have probably got us go soon. So Reguilon's right at the top of my defender wish list. So there we go. That is it for this one. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you are new around here. Let me know below who is on your watch list. Tomorrow I should have the transfer tips video, and then we'll do team selection game week preview on Friday once all the games are finished. If the double game weeks and stuff get announced at any point over the next couple of days and I'm in the house, I'm available for I'm right next to my computer and I'm able to make a video, then I will do that. I'm just hoping they get confirmed soon, because the next couple of weeks, the next couple of game weeks could really see some divergence in chip strategies. So some people will use free hits, some people will use no chips, some people will wildcard early, then look to set up a bench boost. There's loads of different ways we can go about it, but until the fixtures are confirmed, I just don't see how we can do any kind of planning. So as soon as it's done, I will get a video up with my thoughts and reaction and stuff like that and what the hell is happening. But for now, that's been your watch list. Tomorrow we'll probably have transfer tips. I'll see you again soon.